In the previous unit, we explored many interesting concepts and theories concerning social interactions, motivations, and behaviors. Those concepts and theories did not just come from the ideas of psychologists' heads. They were explored thoroughly through empirical and scientific inquiry. In Unit 2, we will discuss and learn some of the tools of the scientific method and develop, implement, and quantify data for a research design of your own by the end of this unit. Research methods is 8 to 10% of the AP exam, so by the end of this unit, we will have already covered 20% of the AP Psychology exam in May. In Unit 2.1, we will focus on differentiating the many types of research with regard to their purposes and strengths and weaknesses. The need for the psychological science is demonstrated in the limitations of intuition and common sense. To passively dismiss human behavior by explaining it through common sense, one condemns themselves to a lack of true understanding of the self and of others. According to a 1984 American Psychologist article by Garth J. Fletcher, quote, "What makes common sense, viewed as a way of thinking, a dangerous resource for psychologists is its propensity to operate silently in the unconscious infrastructure of the mind. Accordingly, it tends to be unmanageable to analysis, while at the same time exerting a powerful hidden influence over psychologists' thinking that is often both unanalyzed and unevaluated." End quote. Some concepts that illustrate the need for the scientific approach to the study of behavior and mental processes are as follows. The hindsight bias is the tendency for one to believe, after learning an outcome, that they in fact knew it all along or could have foreseen it in some way. It is also known as the "I knew it all along" phenomenon. There's a clip from South Park, if you remind me, I'll show you in class. Many behaviors and mental processes in psychology can be explained through a number of cultures and perspectives. The universal language of the scientific method enables researchers and theorists to get as close as possible to the universal explanations as to what is happening, as opposed to, supported assumptions. Hindsight bias can lead to overconfidence. This is where one's confidence in their judgment is greater than its accuracy. For example, Ryan is so confident in his running abilities that he challenges the school's track star to a race. Ryan is then humiliated in front of all his friends on the track. As Myers, the author of our textbook, wisely states, the hindsight bias and overconfidence effect often lead us to overestimate our intuition, but the scientific inquiry can help us sift reality from illusions. The foundation for scientific inquiry is passionate and stubborn curiosity, a zeal for knowledge and truth, being skeptic, always asking why, and continuing the search for validation of data and results. Humility is another required attitude for the scientific attitude. Some researchers study one concept for their entire lives to later be disproven. Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius once said, quote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake in any thought or action, I shall gladly change. I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone. The harm is to persist in one's own self-deception and ignorance." End quote. This leads us to critical thinking. Many of you have heard of this, I'm sure, but critical thinking is the thinking that does not blindly accept arguments and conclusions. Rather, it examines assumptions, discerns hidden values, and evaluates evidence and assesses conclusions. This is what Marcus Aurelius is talking about, critical thinking. The scientific method has developed over time, perhaps no time more significant to the contemporary scientific method than that of the Enlightenment and the scientific revolution in 16th and 17th century Europe. The scientific method involves making observations, forming theories, and then refining theories in the light of new observations. The scientific theory is an explanation using an integrated set of principles that organizes and predicts observations. All right? This enables other researchers and scientists to test that theory for validity. If the theory is continuously supported through research and investigation, it is generally accepted throughout the scientific community. If a theory is proven invalid, then it is disregarded. A hypothesis is a testable prediction often implied by a theory. A hypothesis is a statement of fact that aims to challenge an established theory or eventually create a new theory. If the statement of fact is found not to be scientifically supported, it is disregarded and the original theory is upheld. If a hypothesis disproves a theory, it is tested and retested over and over and over again by other researchers until it too becomes a theory through validation, or if it's invalidated, it is disregarded. In order to accurately test a theory or another hypothesis, researchers must use operational definitions. The operational definition is a statement of the procedures used to define vague research variables or terms. For example, Laura wants to test the effect listening to music has on students and their grades. Her hypothesis is that students who listen to classical music while studying will make better grades. But what does she mean by better grades? Is an 80 a better grade? Is a 75 a better grade? Laura must develop a specific operational definition for what defines a better grade. This way, others can accurately test the results of her research. And this brings us to replication. As stated earlier, scientific theory, hypothesis, and operational definitions are imperative to the replication of a study. Replication is repeating or recreating a research study, usually with the different participants in different situations, to see whether the basic findings generally applicable to other participants and circumstances. A study is useless if it cannot be replicated, because then it can't be tested for validity. For a research to be valid and acceptable by the community at large, it must be able to be replicated. So in short, a theory is useful if and only if it effectively organizes a range of self-reports and observations, and it implies clear predictions that anyone can use to check the theory or to derive practical applications.